Chapter 14. Her mood was much dimmer after the encounter. It was a good reminder that her home was back in New Jersey and not here, despite the warm welcome she had received from others in this small town. Yet it still hurt her feelings to know she was not wanted, especially from a woman who was her exact opposite. Bianca was polished and poised, where Imogen was slightly scattered and bohemian. More, Bianca clearly knew who she was and was very comfortable in her own skin. Imogen couldn't help but envy that of her. What would it be like to know exactly where you belonged and truly embrace it? Imogen certainly was no longer in the mood to be around others, but she'd promised Harper that she'd come to her store and say hello. She didn't want to be rude, but wasn't planning on staying long. Helping her aunt at home was a great excuse not to dally. Imogen pulled the Charger into the parking lot and let out a little snort. Little store, indeed. Harper was either incredibly humble, or everything was bigger in the mountains. She had imagined a small corner store, but instead found a beautiful red barn converted into a retail space that read, General Store, painted on the front. The building could have graced a postcard imparting, "With love from Vermont," on the front. It was simply picturesque. She walked in, the bell over the door tinkling delicately, and took in the space. The vaulted ceilings and large windows allowed for natural light that made the interior feel even bigger. There were a variety of wares displayed, from grocery items to local art, which Imogen admired as she walked through the space toward the counter where Harper stood speaking with another woman. They both leaned over the counter from opposite sides, and as Imogen came closer, she noticed they were laughing and eating something. What was that? It looked like pie. "Imogen!" Harper spotted her and waved her over, the fork waving around as her hands moved in excitement. "You're going to poke your eye out with that thing." Imogen laughed as she approached the two women. Turning to the woman on her side of the counter, wearing torn jeans, a flannel shirt, and a ball cap, she smiled. "Hi, I'm Imogen, Josephine Gray's niece." The woman put her fork down and reached out a hand. "Nice to meet you. I'm Bailey. Welcome to Danby." "Thanks. It's great to meet you. I love how friendly everyone is here." Harper interjected. "Well, not everyone, I'm guessing," she said with a knowing smile. Imogen grimaced. "You could say that. I seem to have made a terrible impression with Bianca. She can't wait until I leave to go home." Bailey laughed out loud. "I wouldn't take that bet. She's been after Gabe since he came home from Afghanistan and bulked up. Funnily, she never spared him a glance growing up when he was stick-thin and wearing those big glasses." Harper snorted as she continued to eat the pie out of the tin at an alarming rate. "He's always been the same guy. Loyal, patient, and charming. She just never saw him until he put on muscle and came back a war hero." Imogen was a little shocked. That was a lot to download. Wait a minute. Gabe? Joe's neighbor was in the military? He doesn't seem like the fighting type." Bailey nodded and picked up her fork to eat again, silently handing over a clean one so Imogen could join the feast. True, he's always been level-headed and prone to mediating rather than jumping in with his fists, but I've never met anyone who is more laser-focused. He grew up locally, and we're an agricultural town primarily. He knew if he wanted to become a veterinarian, he needed help paying for college. "That's right," Harper interjected. "Remember that time he brought the baby skunk home and did all that research to find out how to care for it? His father absolutely lost it when he found him in the hayloft that day. Gabe has always had a soft spot for the helpless." "That's adorable," thought Imogen privately. Then she had a less favorable thought. Maybe that's why he was so attracted to Bianca. She didn't seem very self-assured, and he probably liked the attention she gave him, making him feel like a knight in shining armor. She couldn't blame him. She'd seen it often. Why, even the men she dated had often thought, based on her small stature, that she would depend on them at first. They learned quickly, however, that she was a woman of her own mind and would not be dependent on anyone. They tried, of course, but eventually moved on when she refused to change. Aloud, Imogen said, "He must be a great veterinarian. Everyone was coming over and saying hello last night in the quarry. He seems popular." Harper and Bailey snorted at the same time, then had a giggle fit because of it. Imogen couldn't help but smile. They made a cute couple. "No, sweetie." Harper said when she could catch her breath. You were the popular one. Yes, Gabe is loved here, but everyone wanted to meet the new girl who took Bianca's place. She's not exactly a favorite everywhere. Imogen swallowed the pie, which suddenly became stuck in her dry throat. It went down the wrong pipe, and she coughed and sputtered. Bailey thumped her on the back while Harper opened a bottle of water. Thankfully, she recovered herself and choked out, Gabe is Joe's neighbor. He's just being nice. The two women shared a look, and Bailey shook her head subtly. Harper decided to change the subject. Well, if you're done choking on my pie, let me give you the tour. Imogen had a wonderful time. Bailey and Harper were as opposite in looks and personality as can be, but they somehow fit well together. Harper was small, curvy, and full of positive energy that just radiated out of her while she showed off her beautiful store, her long skirt and bohemian vibe somehow fitting in perfectly with the aesthetic. Bailey was her foil. Tall, thin, and dressed in an almost masculine way, but she was straightforward and gentle, calm and sweet, where her partner was perky and excitable. They were too cute for words. As they walked, Harper pointed out the local art and then explained that she'd been a baker in New York for years before she got divorced from her husband and decided to move home to find herself again. It was easy, she explained, for her to lose sight of herself in the big city with a husband who worked in finance and wished for her to attend events at his side and be little more than a trophy wife. She tried for a while before realizing that she was living someone else's life. Her husband, of course, didn't understand that wasn't enough for her, so the divorce was contentious and ended up in the courts. Harper had waived any financial settlement and retreated home. Bailey had no such sad tale. She grew up in Danby with Harper, working at various barns, and eventually opened her own seasonal business catering to tourists and local equestrians who wanted guided trail riding among the Green Mountains or farther afield. She was most known for her multi-day camping trips on horseback, which she explained gave her from November to May to stay close to home and bug her friends, working odd jobs here and there to pay the bills. The rest of the year was for adventures. It sounded marvelous to Imogen, who had worked an embarrassing number of jobs, but always hated sitting at a desk all day. She immediately liked the women, and hoped they felt the same way about her. Instead of staying silent, she decided to be a bit bold. I've had so much fun with you both. I'd love to go out with you sometime, as long as I'm not a third wheel. Harper looked at her quizzically. We love to go out, and of course we would love to have you. Yes, Bailey chimed in. The more the merrier. Relieved, Imogen gave them each a hug before she left. That's so great. Some people feel weird going out as a couple plus one, but it's never bothered me at all. Let's plan for next week? Harper and Bailey gave each other a long look. Finally, the latter turned to Imogen and revealed, We aren't a couple, Imogen, don't worry. It happens to us all the time, interjected Harper. Everyone teases us that we make the best couple. Honestly, I wish I wasn't attracted to men. Bailey nodded emphatically in agreement. Me too. My job is seasonal, so it doesn't make sense to pay rent year-round when I only need a place a few months out of the year. Harper lets me rent a room above the store here. Oh, that makes sense. Imogen didn't feel embarrassed at all by the mistake. You two would make the cutest couple, though. The other two agreed, and with a few chuckles, they said their goodbyes and made plans for the following week. Imogen had an interesting day, but at least she was going back to the farm with a smile on her face and two new friends.